Hello and welcome to the salesXchange podcast, B2B marketing talk for CEOs. When it comes to marketing, we can safely say that people haven't changed, but the technology certainly has. And if we don't adapt, we're going to run into some serious problems. So, if you're a CEO who's involved in marketing, join us as we talk about strategies and tactics needed to generate new business. And I'm your host and founder of SalesXchange, Nigel Liz. Well, welcome to another podcast, and today it's Liz and I having a chat. Hi, Liz.
Hi.
Now, strategies and tactics is one thing, but one of the other parts of this, I mean, we're talking marketing stuff here, and it didn't just necessarily occur to me, but it's important to know who you're dealing with. Here we are, we're producing these podcasts, we're producing this information, and we want to communicate what and who we are and, what we're about. So I thought this particular podcast, it would be, I suppose, authentic of us, genuine of us, just to have a chat about our background, where we come from, what brought us to this point now, why we're doing this, how we're doing this, different experiences we've had in the past, even, work-wise and so on, just to give you an awareness, an understanding of what we are, what we do. And if you're, I don't know, you might think to yourself, well, actually, I quite like that company. They sound all right. I could probably work with them. You might think, I'm never going to work with them, ever, which is fine. But the bottom line is that we have to, I think in business, especially these days, with so much information out there, we have to be in a position to be open and say, we've done this, we haven't done it, we'll have a go at it, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And it's, I don't know, what do you think? I mean, that's what
Yeah, I think so. I think it's important that anybody listening to us out there or seen our videos or read any of our blog posts, that they kind of understand how we've arrived at this point in our careers and this point with the business, so that you can kind of fully understand where we've come from. Neither of us have an academic background in marketing. It's pretty much been learned on the ground through what we've done, working for people and working for ourselves, independent of each other and together. And so I just think it's important you kind of understand who we are and what our motivations are, what our passions are for marketing. And
so
just,
I'll tell you, okay, your first job.
I worked in a cafe in Droylsden in Manchester. And I only worked there for about 6 weeks. I got the job through my brother-in-law's family. And, they basically got me this job, or I went for the interview and I went along, and it was just awful. Cleaning out not just cleaning tables in the cafe, but there was a fish and chip shop as part of it, and having to clean out the greasy kind of oven bit where they put the fish when it's cooked.
Oh, nice.
And that they put colouring into the batter to make it orange. And I was only there for 6 weeks. Absolutely hated every minute of it. And I think I was paid, if I remember, I did an 8.5-hour day, and I got discounted food, and I got £7.20.
Bargain for them, isn't it?
Talk about slave labour. So that was my first job.
No,
what was yours?
Oh, it was classic paper round.
I'm not even sure that counts as a first job.
It's got to. It's got to be, up at 6 o'clock. Go and do paper round. How old was I? Young enough. But no, that was over kind of bottom of Hampstead, Southend Green area.
Good tips then.
Oh, yeah. Dennis Quilly. I don't know if anybody's heard of Dennis Quilly. But Dennis Quilly was, he was on my patch. So I went round with the cap in hand at Christmas. In fact, no, I didn't get any money from him direct. He gave the money to the shop to give to me. I remember that Christmas I made a fortune in tips. It was great. But then from there, I mean, after that I did butchers, then paper shop. The butchers was speaking back slang, which was quite interesting. They see what they were saying about the customers when they came in. As butchers, Dewhurst the butchers, Lavelle's the news agents, and then hardware store, and then a camping shop, the White Chase shop down in central London. And
so quite a lot of retail. See, my foray into retail was I worked for, and I imagine quite a few people will remember this, I worked for Granada TV rental in the old days when you could actually rent TVs and videos. And actually the back of the shop was about 100 yards from the first cafe that I'd worked in, but I was paid twice the money for working, and it was quite nice actually. And I enjoyed working at Granada. That was my first, that was the first real sales job that I had. And I think I was about 17. And then many, many, many years later, and maybe come on to this, I actually bumped into my manager. And bearing in mind, I was in Manchester at that time. And then years later, I bumped into this lady that Nigel said, "Oh, you'll really like her. This lady's called Lynn, and she's doing some networking with us." And I was introduced to her, and I wasn't quite sure, but something was familiar about it. And then she started talking, and I went, "Oh, Lynn." I said, "You were my first manager in my second Saturday job." And she was like, "I'm really not that old." And I was like, no, honestly, you were. And you worked for this shop. And she went, "Oh, God, I did." And I don't know whether she actually remembered me because she wasn't there for very long, but she then moved down to Hemel. And but I remembered her, and it was like, I cannot, what a small world, because we're talking easily 30 years later that I bumped into her at this networking event. And so that was my second job. I didn't do retail for very long, and then I worked in pubs and stuff when I was a student. So
after I did the camping stuff, I did a short stint in a camera shop, and then I went and travelled. And so I worked in like cafe. I picked grapes and grafted and
inoculated chickens.
Oh God, I forgot about that. Yeah, I got around the first kind of foray or first outing. I got as far as Israel, and I worked in the Negev desert, and we had to vaccinate like 2,500 or 3,500 turkeys. And that was an all-night thing. That was awful. I mean, that was. I thought, I'm not doing. I've had enough of that. We're off. I met this American guy, and then we ended up going down to Eilat and working down in Eilat, working in the youth hostel, cooking for hundreds of people, because I'm a chef, aren't I? It's a job. And then, so that was working there. And then on the way back. Oh, then we worked in a cafe, so I was cooking and cleaning and doing breakfast and stuff like that in the cafe, and then left there, went to Crete, and I was a DJ for a night in Hanya in Crete.
Once DJ, never to be forgotten.
You can see it, can't you?
No.
I feel I've gone really warm. I've gone really hot. And then came back and then went back into. I did a bit of work in a camera shop, and then did Australia, sort of kind of the Asia Australia thing, and then in cameras over there as well, and then came back and did it only for a reasonable period of time actually, and I got involved in management, but I wasn't actually interested in photography. That was the difference.
But that was really your first step into sales, wasn't it? Sales and marketing, really, when you worked in the camera shop.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the guy that I was working, I mean, he's not around anymore. He died a few years ago. But yeah, the camera shop was quite interesting. It was very interesting because I trebled the guy's turnover within the period of time that I was there, and from there went into direct sales. And so I started selling selling office equipment in Mayfair, and did that for about. Just under a couple of years there and doing fax and stuff like that. And then that was about 84. And then by 1987, the beginning of 1987, started working for myself. And that's when we started the first business and did all the things that people do in the first business. Stupid cars, spent stupid money, made lots of mistakes. And ultimately, after 7 years, we weren't running it anymore.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And you parted company with your...
Oh, yeah, parted company with my business partner who was infinitely better and more adept at spending money than I was. I mean, he absolutely caned it. So hence we parted company, not amicably. But yeah, it was, and that was a bit of a tough time because I say bit of a tough time, and a lot of people will understand the same time we closed the business down. A few months later, my daughter died, so that was that was really tough. She was 4, and she was out with my ex-wife, and it was a bicycle accident, and you kind of have to try and come to terms with that and run a business and try and work out what you're supposed to be doing. Should you be doing anything? Do you want to run a business or not? Or it was really difficult. I had an 18-month-old son as well at the time, and so it was trying to balance and manage all of that. And then a year later, a daughter was born, another daughter, and so we kind of looking at the way that, or the things that people have to deal with in business. It can be really tough. I mean, it's bad enough if you're not doing enough business and you're not making enough money, and the problems that come with that. But when you've got the whole the life side of business that comes in and gives you a kicking, you've really got to. I'm not going to say anything deep. You've got to work out why you're here, why you are here, not why you are here, and what you're going to do with it if you're alive. And your kind of your pride and joy has just died, and you think, well, is this it? And I think, with people that were around us and the support and so on, one gets through these things to an extent. You don't ever forget, you don't ever get over it, but you learn to live with it, and then. As the clarity kind of came back, I started looking at the way, and we were kind of dealing with telecoms specifically then, and I looked at the transition because we were. Do you remember WordPerfect?
Oh yeah, WordPerfect 5.
Oh, whatever I don't know which number it was, but we were using. I was used to using WordPerfect, and we had loads of different macros set up and all this kind of stuff. And I wanted to use a CRM package, and my accountant at the time recommended Goldmine or Act or something. I don't know what it was. One of the early ones. But in order to run it, you had to run Windows 3.1. So that was the first time I used 3.1. It was only for that, and then so I started using 3.1 and then Word, and then gradually set everything up using this CRM, and then changed it to another one, which was to Goldmine. And then telephone systems were developing. And so with the onset of CTI, computer-supported telephony applications, CSTA, CTI, and integration and so on and so on and so on, and TAPI, so you're able to get telephone application.
Programming interface.
That was it, to get that working. And we kind of fully embraced the integration of technology and automation, because Goldmine had automated processes and we were dialing from the screen. And
so what year was that then, when that you started in fully in the telecoms industry?
93. Lauren died in 93. So we'd already started that. And so it's kind of late 93, started getting into that and driving it. And we were looking at setting things up in such a way that we were using the technology, not the graft. Because bearing in mind, you could say I cut my teeth on cold calling. Everybody did.
Yeah.
So it was cold calling in the wind, rain, and snow, and collecting compliment slips, putting your hand over the intercom, so they and so they wouldn't hear what you were saying, and then they'd let you in, and then you get
like
a compliment.
Peter Case cage.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And so you'd go and talk to you'd go in there, you get a compliment slip, you try and look around behind the
receptionist to take pity on you because it was snowing outside, and you had
like a wet rag.
Yeah.
And then you'd basically see what kit they had and so on, and then you'd attempt to phone up, and then you'd go back to the office and you'd phone up and you'd get an appointment and look to get an appointment with the managing director or whoever was the decision maker, and then sell them some more kit. So that's what everybody did, whether it was office equipment or telecoms or whatever. And I did it, of course I did it, and was got awards and all the toys and presents that went with it. But I'd like to say my intellect, but my not necessarily my intellect or my laziness, but I thought this is too much like hard work. This is ridiculous. So we've got all this software now, CRM software and so on. So how can we exploit it? How can we make it work for us? And so I started working on getting a database together and calling people and keeping connected with them through CRM, and having teams of people do the telesales, but also producing quite a lot of content. And we were, it was quite early I say early days, but we were producing content in a form of quite significant ring binders, and the ring binders would explain the telecoms industry and the nuances of call management and voicemail and voice recording and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, you would have been a contemporary of mine, because my first proper sales job, I worked with my ex-husband, and we had our own business. And
I didn't work with my ex-wife, though.
No, I know that. But I worked with my ex-husband. But it just so happened I was on maternity leave when my little girl was born, and I kind of found out all about telephony and ISDN and analog and all this sort of stuff. And we sold our house and we came into a bit of cash, and so it was decided I could join the business and do the telesales. And I'd never done it before, and I really didn't have any sort of expectation. I didn't know what it was, but what I did know was that you just had to keep going and just had to keep hitting the phones. And, that was how we got business. I mean, for me, I would not so much go through the yellow pages. That came a bit later, but I would cut ads out of the newspaper and phone up recruitment, people that were recruiting, because my view was if they were recruiting, they weren't laying people off, which meant, maybe they were expanding, maybe they were looking for a phone system. But it was a good time. I enjoyed the telecoms industry very much.
And there was a lot happening. I mean, it was a big change. I mean, everybody had been using the old Monarchs and the old phone systems, and they'd bought out least cost routing, so people get cheaper calls.
Yeah, you could sell a phone system on the back of cheaper calls, and it was I do think it was great.
You could do cost comparisons against cheaper calls that would be cheaper to change the phone system out, sign up a lease, rather than pay an open-ended rental to BT, all that kind of stuff. And that's what was happening at the time. I mean, and I think that with us, because we were constantly looking at the way in which product was sold, and yes, that's called marketing, and it's looking at doing it better and better ways. The process of systemizing the way in which we were communicating our message was different to everybody else. I mean, at the time I had a small company, and it was only a small telecoms consultancy type company. But I was, as we were, I was dealer of the year 2 years running. That's nationally against hundreds of other people. So it worked. We knew it worked. But then, as I'm laughing, I shouldn't laugh. As things got to 96, I then had a quadruple bypass. So I was the grand old age of 34. So quadruple bypass. It was like, again, you've got to contemplate your life, what you're doing. And some people said it was a broken heart. Other people, whether you're drinking and smoking, everybody drank, everybody smoked. Nobody said anything otherwise. But even then, it didn't. I didn't massively change my lifestyle. they just threw a load of drugs at me and said, "Kate, take them, keep going." And so that was kind of 96. And as we got towards the end of the century, wow, we got towards the end of the century, tripped into the following year, and then life took a big change, and I went it alone with my kids eventually, but we went it alone, so we separated, and then. But the point was, we were still doing a lot of telecoms. We were doing telecoms for national organisations from Scotland down to Cornwall, and so the whole process was still we were constantly looking at the ways in which product could be sold more efficiently and more effectively. And we continued doing as well. We got together in
2003.
2003. I was just about to say that. And continued until 2009. And at that point, we said, "Well, that's it. We're moving away from the technology side, because so much was happening in the digital side, the internet and so on, was with us in a big way."
And I think you'd started building websites by then, hadn't you? We'd kind of in 2006 when you wrote the book.
We started the book then and did that, and then built the started building websites and started looking at why some work and why some don't, who was doing what. Even Marketo, which is one of the biggest marketing automation platforms now, that's when they appeared on the scene. And so there were lots of different types of products that would work independently of each other, and were to gradually start to work with each other and to be integrated. So there were landing page platforms that worked independently, and then they integrated with Marketo, and then MailChimp integrating with Unbounce, and all these different types of products sort of came on the scene, and it made far more sense to me, because I could not see anybody out there that was looking to do anything different other than, I suppose, resell somebody else's marketing technology, or resell somebody else's snake oil that they'd come up with in terms of a marketing strategy, which was a load of rubbish anyway. But it was just a way of blag this and we'll get someone to buy into this amazing methodology and get them to pay us stupid money. And people bought it hook, line and sinker, because how else were you to do this? Because bearing in mind there was the boom bust in the early 2000s with the internet, and a lot of people lost a lot of money, because it was like, this time next year, Rodney, we'll be millionaires. And it didn't happen, because we didn't know at the time, but it was that the marketers decided that they were going to market to people in the same way on the internet as they did on television, which was they were going to broadcast to everybody. And they hadn't quite grasped, nobody had quite grasped that the internet meant one-to-one communications. They didn't really get that to begin with, and that's why there was the big boom bust. And then after the boom bust, then it was the realization we have to operate and structure this differently. And then that, I don't think that really matured. Has it ever really matured? Lots of people know about it, lots of people talk about it, but I wouldn't say that that's prevalent in the marketing industry, because the people that do it, my view, and it's backed up by the fact that so much content is only available if you give an email address, means that people are looking to get your phone number, get your email address, and then pester the hell out of you if they've managed to get hold of that, which means you're still selling like you did in the 50s.
But I think since making the decision just to go fully into marketing in about 2009, I think it was, making that decision and seeing how things have changed quite a lot since 2000. The message is still the same, I think, from people like David Meerman Scott and Seth Godin and Carmine Gallo. You know, they're all, even at that time, I mean, I've been reading, I read the 10 books this year, the 10 marketing books. And even then, back in like 2009, 2010, it's about content. It's about authenticity. Hence the reason today that we're talking about this and what our background is. That, you know, developing content that is authentically ours. We're not trying to say that we're something that we're not. You know, we both come from a telecoms background for one reason or I fell into it because it was something to do when I was on maternity leave, but actually loved the telecoms industry, moved from, when I separated from my ex-husband, I still stayed in the telecoms industry. I then went on to sell voice recording and software and so on, and loved it. But I was still doing the same kind of thing. I was still doing cold calling. Even when we got together, we were still doing cold calling. That was the way to do it. And there was nothing more sophisticated. And I remember we did this great brochure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We did a brochure.
Square one,
we did this brochure, and it was great, and it was really well produced. The text was great, but we sent it out to so many people, and
we didn't have a process of following up or anything else.
Follow up, and it was so. But we knew that marketing was actually the most important part of our business, and that's when we really started learning about it.
I know, you know, we having started in business in 87 and being involved in sales and doing that and looking to find new business. So you're constantly looking at finding new business. You're fully ensconced in marketing. You know, not some marketing manager that gets paid irrespective of anything that goes in. If you don't make it work, you don't get paid. You don't get to live. You don't get to eat. So there's a bit of a driver there. Yep. And so the point of saying, wait a second, that there has to be a better way, and I'm gonna find it. If I can't find it, I'm gonna do something. I'll leave. I'll go abroad. I'll go somewhere. Go and do something different. Because I absolutely refuse to accept that we're in 2020 right now, and we're still selling kit the same way we did in 1950. It's like, you got to be kidding me, and there's got to be a reason for that. I mean, I'm glad I stuck at it. I'm absolutely 100% glad I stuck at it because, I mean, anybody that's listening to this and has got this far on this podcast, it's like, go and have a look at the website. Look at what we're saying on there, because basically, in a quick nutshell, we're saying, hey, it doesn't work. It's never worked. It's graft because nobody's decided or worked out a better way of doing it. And this is the bottom line. And it's about creating content. And people go, oh well, we can't do that. Why is that then? Well, if we produce content, it means we have to be reliant on someone contacting us. Yeah, what's wrong with that? If you've got quality content, they'll call you.
Yep.
And you go, yeah, but we actually don't trust ourselves because we're virtually illiterate, because we're lazy. We can't be bothered to write stuff. We don't trust our marketing people. We don't trust copywriters. All we can trust is going out door knocking. And it's like, give me a break, because the salespeople don't want to do that. And the marketing people want to be let loose creatively, but they're not allowed to. And so, you know, any marketer nowadays turning around and saying to a managing director, do X, Y, or Z, the managing director can veto it instantly, because he can turn around and go, why on earth should I believe you? You've never done anything. It's been 50 years, 70 years. You've done nothing in 70 years. You've done the same thing year in, year out. Why should I listen to you now?
And I do think, you know, when I was doing telesales, it was always a numbers game. So if you made 100 phone calls a day, you would get through to 10 people, and maybe if you were lucky, make one appointment. And that was in a very fertile market.
I was talking to Dean. Dean said, Oh, that's just changed. That's changed because we were talking about this literally the other day. No. That's changed. It's changed. You make 100 phone calls and you find one person that's interested, let alone an appointment. You have to find. So almost like 1,000 phone calls before you actually get through to someone. And of course, they're all busy.
That would explain now why people are getting more and more aggressive. The tactics and the way to get through to people to get past the gatekeeper has become more and more aggressive. Just outright lying and saying, I work for your company in the States and I need to speak to somebody. Well, that's strange because you don't have an American accent, but that person does. And then they hang up, or they just get really shirty with you and say, I can't talk to you. And, I think the tactics...
Even the emails, if they can't say it to you voice to voice, they'll put it on an email. How dare you not answer my emails? I mean, I've said this before. I'm not going to go over it again, but I mean, it's disgraceful. But it's driven through fear and lack. And everyone's got KPIs. Doesn't matter who they are. If you're in business, you've got a KPI, whether it's to bank manager, your family or whatever. You've got KPIs. And the trouble is that the ratios are wrong. And because the ratios are wrong, everyone's living in fear, trying to make it happen. They can't make it happen because the numbers don't work anymore. So you have to create the content, have lots of great juicy content, and you have to distribute it on a regular basis using automation, as in social media automation and so on. And when it gets to marketing automation, like we mentioned, Marketo and MailChimp or GetResponse or Pardot or Eloquent, it doesn't matter which one, yeah? They are not spam machines. These mail marketing automation platforms should be called permission marketing platforms, because you've got to get permission from people to market to them and not just deceive them into giving them a bit of content that you can get their email address, do a cascading style sheet or cascading form, which means you can get their email address first off and get a telephone number second time round and then phone them. That's you're back to cold calling again.
And I think this is where our journeys kind of have come to. It's that realisation, having been in sales and both sold direct and then got more involved in marketing and understanding that marketing is actually, it's a real skill to market your business properly. It's a real skill, and it involves understanding the buyer, but it also it requires understanding the company. It requires going in, talking to a company, and being fresh eyes in that business.
Yeah, and it's about matching, because if we I mean, for those that don't know, we only do B2B. We don't do B2C. We don't do to consumer. People talk about it's human to human. No. Company A's got a product and they want to sell it to another business. It's B2B. Yes, of course, they're human, and we're not selling to dogs or inanimate objects. So, of course, it's human. But the thing is, these are all excuses that the marketers want to come out with to give themselves an excuse why they're not succeeding. And they're not meeting their KPIs because the marketing people come up with these ideas to try and create marketing qualified leads that are then passed to sales. And at that demarcation point, the marketing department has done its job. And then the salespeople say, your leads are crap. All they wanted was a brochure, and you've given it to me as a qualified lead. They don't want to talk to me. So when the managing director turns around and says, why haven't we sold anything? Marketing says, salespeople are crap. And sales turn around and say, your marketers are useless. And they're both right. The trouble is that you've got to get that balance. I mean, I've said this before. Readjust the way that your marketing infrastructure is set up. Change it to a content division and reduce the numbers of people that go and sell. Get rid of your worst performers. I mean, I'm only saying it as it is. Get rid of the salespeople that are no good. Change their targets. Make it revenue structured, and pay them a salary. Don't pay them commission.
Yeah, and I think it's because we know how hard it is. I mean, we've really pounded the streets and hit the phones.
It's not about the effort or how hard it is. It's I think that the whole model's changed. You talk about the IT department, and everybody goes, bloody IT department. But the IT department needs to include all of the servers, web server, e-commerce server, CRM server, as well as the user experience person, the customer experience person, and the administrators to take care of all of that technology and journey. And separate to that, you then got your content people, your writers and creators. So writers and reporters and researchers and videographers and so on. And you've got those people. And then you have a smaller number of people that go and get the paperwork signed. And of course it always works.
But it always comes down to hard work, though. It doesn't matter what, when we were doing it, it was hard work hitting the phones, walking the streets in terms of getting compliments lists.
Yeah, and now it's hard work. You've got to produce the content
you
up front.
actually do have to produce the content. And I think, we understand it, we get it. We've not got this from an academic background of going, well, this is what it told us to do in our degree.
My SIM qualification said it needs to be X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, no, this has come from hard-earned lessons ourselves, but also observing other companies that, are not getting it right and are suffering because of the consequences.
The thing is, I've got 30 plus years doing this. I know a lot of people in business, so multiply that by the people I know in business, your experience in business. We know what works, what doesn't work. And I mean, even what we're doing now with this, with podcasts and videos and everything else that we're doing, I think by next March, which is I think we should. It might be beforehand. We might do it beforehand, but no later than March. We will have 3 months statistics of making a concerted effort to not do anything other than distribute content without gatekeeping it.
Yep.
So completely freely available content, because our name and address and telephone number is on the documents that can be downloaded.
Yep.
All of the information, everything that we know, we don't know everything, but our knowledge has been put on in writing. We've got this. I did that, like you said before. I did the book. So we've got a book, 260-page book that's available to download. We've got brochures and documents and videos and podcasts and blogs and all this information, which would take someone, I don't know, quite a long time to go through and read it, bit by bit. But it's do it this way. This is the way because it works. And to tell you the extent of how well it works, we'll tell you in March. Because I just think that the other businesses out there haven't got the bottle to go and do it. I mean, it's quite simple.
I mean, we absolutely believe in this approach. Everything that we've looked at, everything that we've studied, everything that all of our experience tells us that.
But no, it's not just the experience. It's what's actually happened. Even doing the telecoms and producing, like I said before, producing enormous comprehensive ring binders to send to people. Because what would happen? So my guys would send it out. I'd then pitch up 6 months later or whenever, and they go, "Oh yeah, thanks for sending that. It's a lovely document that was. It's up there on the shelf. I've not read it." But clearly, you know what you're talking about.
But that's what I mean by experience. Our experience tells you produce something, and at the time you produced that ring binder, and you sent it out. It was free of charge. You were, you were giving that away. You were giving away your knowledge about the telecoms industry, and your prospects were responding to that in a way that said, I trust what you've put in there because you couldn't put that together if you didn't know what you were talking about. Therefore, I trust you.
I had that thing with that. There was a financial services company I did a load of work for. And I said, right, you need to do this, and this. This is much more recently. And they've gone, oh, really? As much as that? And so they sent me over to Germany. I had to do a presentation to the directors over in Germany, came back, and they kitted out the office, all Mac gear and everything else. And I had like a £250,000 budget to go and play. And I set it all up, set everything up. And what I didn't know was that the directors were crapping themselves. I mean, properly crapping themselves, because this was out of their field of knowledge and awareness and so on. And they were terrified. They thought that they were going to get shot by the directors in Germany. And they had not experienced this before. And of course, I was very confident. Why wouldn't I be? And so it was 10 weeks after the launch, from cold, absolutely nothing. And the first deal they got was 3.5 million. And they went, "Oh, Nigel, we really trusted you. We weren't sure, but we trusted you." Yeah, right. Liars. But at the end of the day, it does take a bit of confidence and commitment to do something like that. But that's why we're saying, look, we've taken a certain stance with this, which is anybody can go onto our website, download everything, read everything, go and do it yourself. And some people say, well, actually, we prefer you to do it, which is fine by me, absolutely fine. But the whole thing about, I mean, even just this podcast now, it's just like, this is who we are. This is where we've come from. This is our background. That we do this out of having an absolute passion for this. Because I was talking to our accountant earlier, and I said that this has bigger and wider ramifications, because the impact this will have on businesses is more revenue. You think, well, yeah, and so what? But more revenue means less stress.
Yeah. Less
stress means a better family life. And one thing we haven't touched on at all is that we're both believers. We both, we read the Bible. We absolutely know it. We understand it. We get it. We absolutely get it. And we don't go to church. And that's a rabbit hole there anyway. But we get it, and we've been believers, and some people would call us Christians, but we're believers, and we absolutely fully get it. But it's about passing this on. It's about saying there's a better way to do this.
Yeah, and we're totally passionate about it. I mean, I think we've always been passionate about business, even when we were selling telecoms. Going into a business and looking at what they had and saying, you can improve the way you do business. You can improve, you get calls coming in, they can, put them through an automated attendant and do this. And,
I forgot about that. Yeah,
and all of those but it was the enthusiasm, I mean, I absolutely loved that, going into a business and knowing that you could change the way their business functioned, and you could give them ideas about how they could do things. People didn't always take it up, but I think that enthusiasm came through, that we really, we loved what we did then, and we love what we do now. And I think going in and changing people's businesses.
It's a bit like, is it marketing? Well, yeah, I guess it is. But actually, there's a very fine line between marketing, call it consultancy, but marketing consultancy and management consultancy, because what we're saying is, look, you can adjust your human resources ratios, which means lose them, add to that, get contractors in here, change this, do this work here, because that's finite and therefore instantly quantifiable and not open-ended.
Yep.
So therefore you can do X, Y, and Z here. There's a demarcation point. That part of the project's finished. Now start with that automation there. Sit back and wait. And that's it. And I think one of the big problems with marketing businesses out there, whether you're talking SEO, SEM, anything, doesn't matter what it is, it's always open-ended. Nobody has put it or presented marketing strategies as being closed, saying it's finite. You've got to do this. There's a cost to it. The cost is always variable, because you the person listening to me right now, you have a certain amount of content which I don't know about. So some of it is going to be repurposed and reused, and some of it needs to be added to. There you go. How can you put a cost on that? You could say you want me to go and do it, and it'll cost you X, or you go and do it yourself, and it'll cost you Y. So there are reasons to do, to call people in and not call them in. So the whole thing about this is that we have an approach that's different. I defy anybody to turn around and say, "Oh, it doesn't work." Prove it.
But I think it's this is a very business-driven approach, as opposed to a very design-driven approach. Because we don't come from a design background. We come very much from a business background. Not only having worked in technology, but having had our own businesses for over a very long period of time. So this is a very business-driven approach and looking at the business as a whole, and not just saying, well, actually, if you get a really nicely designed brochure and you change that logo and just smooth the edges off, that will make all the difference in your business. No, we're a very business-focused company.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be ROI. It's got to be ROI driven. And the thing is that, when you've gone from like the first business that I was involved with a business partner, we sold everything. If it went into an office, we sold it. If it moved, we sold it. I mean, from photocopiers the size of a room, furniture, refurbishment, network computer systems. That was on Novell Networks at the time. Network computer systems, telephone systems, carpets, partitioning. I mean, everything. So that's having an appreciation of that type of technology, and that was what led on to doing the book. And the book was about the Business Technology and Marketing Handbook, which is looking at technology to make a return on investment, to get a return on investment. Don't buy it if you can't make money from it. And that's driven where we are now to say, you don't need some airy-fairy, flowery bit of artwork done. You need to have a structure and a strategy that communicates to your customers that says, yep, I can deal with them. I can work with them. Yep. And that's it. They don't care about anything else. And the thing is that we have great designers, great technical people that understand, some, really, really cool JavaScript stuff, if we need to. But 9 times out of 10, it's not needed. It needs to be, keep it simple, stupid. It needs to be KISS. It needs to be all those analogies that the salespeople were used in the past. It's got to be something that's replicable and constantly replicable that can generate income on a consistent basis. That's all. That's what's needed. And we get to a point now where you can, if you've got a couple of cameras and for 300 quid you can broadcast. So it's like, wait a second, if you can do this stuff and communicate to a massive audience, then your opportunities have changed. But if a business is still looking at cold calling, telephone cold calling, and door knocking, it's like, give me a break. With 2020, you could buy a Blackmagic A10 Mini and broadcast on LinkedIn Live or Facebook Live to millions of people. For 300 quid.
I think gone are the days of the large telesales teams. It would be far better to, take 3 or 4 people out of those telesales teams that, because there are diminishing returns. There have to be diminishing returns. To either redeploy those people or use that financial resource and put it into the production of content that is out there 24/7. It never stops. It's out there. It doesn't
ask for commission, doesn't complain, doesn't go on holiday, doesn't go sick.
No.
And that's my view is, it might be a bit ruthless, but you look at your sales team, right? Say, for example, you've got 10 people in sales team, get rid of 3 or 4 or 5 of them, whatever. You just saved yourself £500,000, give or take. Depends what you're saying or selling or doing. And therefore just convert that, get the content written, get that out there, distribute it sensibly and intelligently, and bingo, you're communicating with your market. You're saving the money on the salaries. You're communicating with the people that you need to. And the point of doing this, or the methodology of doing this, is start off in parallel. You're not going to go, listen to Nigel and Liz on a podcast. You're all fired.
Please don't say that.
But the bottom line is like, look at it, check it out, do it in parallel. As one increases, the other can decrease. That's absolutely fine. And that makes good business sense. And therefore, you're reducing your overheads. Happy days. I can't think of any other logical way of doing it. And the thing is, there's nobody else out there in marketing land that are saying, do anything different other than use more technology to push out more email to get more telephone numbers from people that your sales team can phone up and make appointments. No,
that doesn't work.
No, absolutely not.
It really doesn't work.
And then you can get a chief revenue officer or chief growth officer to come in and shout at all the salespeople and say that you're not doing your job properly. But the flip side is, wait a second, what happened to marketing? So, I mean, I mean, I can talk about this for hours and hours and hours and hours, hours and hours, but I won't. But you know, I mean, this is just, I think, just a bit of an insight to what we do and why we do it and why would we do it. And you know, with 10 years under our belt on the marketing side, 20 years on technology, we've been there and we've got the T-shirt, we sold millions of pounds worth of kit, direct and indirect, you know, with marketing stuff, marketing technologies as well. And it's like, if you like what you hear, great, keep in touch. That's all we expect. Just keep in touch. And if you need us to do anything, I'm sure you'll decide at some stage that we best call them and have a chat. But the point of this is to demonstrate to you as the listener, you have to go and do this. Not warts and all, but you have to go out there and do this. You've got to go and do this marketing thing, this podcast thing, this way of reaching out and communicating with people authentically. And we'll tell you what kit to get. It's not expensive, you know. A thing that plugs into your a box with some sliders on it that plugs into your laptop, and a few mic stands and a few microphones, and you're away. And straight away, you know, you've got a podcast set up for under $1,000, and you can communicate your message to your customers. It's not complicated, and it's, you know, and if you're listening to this and you just recommend it to somebody that you know that, you know, that they've got go. You've not really got much choice. And you know, fight and pull away and try not to do it. It's not going to work anymore, and that's why you've got these diminishing returns on the activities of salespeople, and it's no good for them either. You know, I'm sure some of them might be really good at sitting in front of a camera or doing research or being a presenter, because they're gregarious and outgoing, and they can slide into that role really well. You might have salespeople that shouldn't be salespeople. You know, it depends on what they've done target wise, but you know where I'm coming from. I think that's it for now. I think, and we've got to play the music's has got to play out. Has got to play us out. And that was an advert free session.
Yep.
But I hope you enjoyed it, and
do get in touch if you want to have a chat with us about your business, about your marketing, where you're going, and what your plans are for the future. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and I mean, and of course, in the meantime, look at the website, salesexchange.co.uk. It'll take you a while to go through all of it, but look forward to hearing from you.
Bye for
Bye
now.
for now.